The Pilot's Last Stand, Chapter 1, Scorched Earth. The Terran frontier was a graveyard of starships, a desolate expanse where the echoes of the First Contact War still lingered. Rusted metal skeletons floated in the void, silent monuments to a conflict that had nearly extinguished humanity. The few remaining outposts clung to life, their flickering lights a testament to the stubborn resilience of the human spirit. In the dimly lit cockpit of a battered starfighter, Commander Jace Miller traced his fingers over the faded insignia on his flight suit, a phoenix rising from flames. It had been his squadron's emblem, a symbol of hope in the face of destruction. But now it served as a painful reminder of everything he'd lost. Jace had been a rising star in the Terran Starfleet, a natural pilot with a daredevil streak and an unwavering sense of duty. But the war had changed everything. His homeworld, a vibrant planet teeming with life, had been reduced to a lifeless husk by the merciless Zidonians. His squadron, his friends, his family, all gone. Now he commanded Phoenix Squadron, a ragtag group of pilots cobbled together from the remnants of the fleet. They were misfits, rebels, and washed-up veterans, united by a shared sense of loss and a burning desire for revenge. Jace glanced at his crew through the comm screen. There was Lieutenant Kale Ghost Tanaka, a stoic ace with a mysterious past, Sergeant Maya Sparks Patel, a hot-tempered engineer with a knack for jury-rigging repairs, and Corporal Finn Lucky O'Malley, a wisecracking rookie with a surprising aptitude for tactics. They were an unlikely team, but Jace had learned to trust them with his life. They were all he had left. The silence in the cockpit was broken by a sharp beep from the comm panel. "Commander, we're picking up a distress signal." Sparks's voice crackled through the speakers. Jace leaned forward, his eyes scanning the data scrolling across the screen. "Source? Unknown origin, sir, but it's strong, and it's coming from deep within the frontier." Jace felt a chill run down his spine. The frontier was a no-man's land, a haven for pirates and scavengers. What could possibly be out there sending a distress call? "Patch it through," he ordered. A moment later, a garbled transmission filled the cockpit. It was a desperate plea for help, spoken in a language Jace didn't recognize, but the tone was unmistakable. Fear, desperation, and a hint of defiance. Jace exchanged glances with his crew. They knew what this could mean. A distress call from the frontier could be a trap, a lure set by pirates or worse. But it could also be a genuine cry for help from someone in need. Jace made his decision. "Sparks, plot a course for the signal's source. Ghost, Lucky, prepare for combat." He looked at his crew, his eyes hardening with determination. "We're going in." As the starfighter roared to life, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was different. It felt like more than just another routine patrol. It felt like destiny. Chapter 2, Ghosts of the Past. The Phoenix Squadron's hangar bay echoed with the clang of metal on metal, the hiss of welding torches, and the steady hum of power tools. Sparks flew as Maya Sparks Patel, her face streaked with grime and sweat, tightened a bolt on Lucky's fighter. "Easy there, Sparks," Lucky said, his voice laced with a playful drawl. "She's a delicate flower, you know." Sparks rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Yeah, a delicate flower that could take a beating from a Zidonian cruiser and still come out swinging. Jace watched them from the observation deck, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. It was moments like these, the camaraderie and the shared purpose, that made him grateful for his ragtag team. They were more than just pilots. They were a family, forged in the crucible of war. But even as he watched them, a shadow of doubt crept across his face. The distress signal had rattled him, dredging up memories he'd tried to bury. He saw flashes of fire, heard screams of terror, felt the cold grip of fear. It was the same nightmare that had haunted him since the fall of his homeworld. He turned away from the window, his fists clenching. He couldn't afford to let those ghosts of the past cripple him now, not when his squadron needed him most. Just then the hangar bay doors slid open, revealing a sleek shuttle emblazoned with the insignia of Terran High Command. A tall, imposing figure stepped out, his uniform crisp and immaculate. "Commander Miller," the man said, extending a gloved hand. "Admiral Thorne, at your service." Jace shook the Admiral's hand, his grip firm but cautious. Thorne was young, barely older than Jace himself, but his eyes held a steely determination that belied his inexperience. "Admiral," Jace said, nodding in acknowledgement, "to what do we owe the pleasure?" Thorne's gaze swept across the hangar bay, taking in the battered starfighters and the makeshift repairs. A flicker of disapproval crossed his face. "I've been sent to oversee the defense of this outpost," he said, his voice clipped and precise. "I've reviewed your squadron's records, Commander. Impressive, but unconventional." Jace bristled at the thinly veiled criticism. "We do what it takes to survive out here, Admiral. We don't have the luxury of shiny new toys." Thorne raised an eyebrow. "Indeed, which is why I brought reinforcements. A squadron of elite pilots and the latest starfighter models." Jace's heart sank. He knew what this meant. Thorne would try to sideline Phoenix Squadron, replace them with his own handpicked team. "With all due respect, Admiral," Jace said, his voice tight, "my pilots know this territory. They've faced the Zidonians before. They're the best chance we have." Thorne's smile was thin. "We'll see about that, Commander. In the meantime, I suggest you familiarize yourself with my pilots. We'll be running joint simulations to assess their capabilities." Jace nodded, but his gut churned with unease. He sensed a storm brewing, a conflict that could tear his squadron apart. And as he watched Thorne stride away, a single thought echoed in his mind. This is not going to end well. Chapter 3, Inferno in the Void. The Terran frontier ignited in a maelstrom of laser fire and explosions. The Zidonian armada, a swarm of sleek, predatory vessels, descended upon the outpost like a plague of locusts. Their weapons blazed, tearing through the Terran defenses, leaving a trail of burning wreckage in their wake. Phoenix Squadron, outnumbered and outgunned, hurtled into the fray. Jace gritted his teeth, his hands a blur as he weaved his fighter through a hail of enemy fire. Sparks' voice crackled in his earpiece, her tone a mix of adrenaline and defiance. "Phoenix 1 to all units, engage. Hit 'em hard, hit 'em fast. We're the only thing standing between these bastards and the rest of humanity." Ghost, silent as always, danced his ancient fighter through the chaos, his movements preternaturally smooth. Lucky, his youthful bravado momentarily subdued, unleashed a barrage of missiles with deadly precision. The battle raged, a chaotic ballet of death and destruction. Fighters twisted and turned, their engines screaming as they dodged enemy fire. Explosions blossomed like deadly flowers, casting eerie shadows across the battlefield. Jace felt a burning sensation in his shoulder as a stray laser bolt grazed his fighter. He hissed in pain, but his focus never wavered. He locked onto a Zidonian cruiser, his fingers tightening on the trigger. "Eat this, you bastards!" he roared, unleashing a volley of energy blasts. The cruiser shuddered, its shields flickering, but it held firm. Jace cursed, pulling back on the stick to avoid a retaliatory strike. He could feel the sweat trickling down his forehead, his heart pounding in his chest. This was a fight they couldn't win. Not alone. He glanced at his fuel gauge. It was dangerously low. He needed to break off, return to base for repairs and refueling. But if he did, the Zidonians would overrun the outpost. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Ghost's voice came over the comm, calm and steady. "Phoenix 1, I've got an idea. A crazy one." Jace hesitated. Ghost was a man of few words, but when he spoke, it was always worth listening to. "I'm all ears, Ghost," Jace said. Ghost explained his plan, a daring maneuver that would require split-second timing and nerves of steel. It was a long shot, a gamble, but it was their only chance. Jace took a deep breath. "All right, Ghost, let's give 'em hell." The Phoenix Squadron, battered but unbroken, rallied around Ghost's plan. They formed a tight formation, their fighters weaving and dodging like a swarm of angry hornets. Ghost, at the tip of the spear, flew straight towards the enemy flagship, his engines glowing with a strange, ethereal light. As he approached the flagship, Ghost's fighter seemed to shimmer, its outline blurring. Suddenly, it vanished from sight, leaving behind a trail of shimmering energy. A collective gasp went up from the Zidonian armada. Their sensors went haywire, their weapon systems malfunctioning. Ghost had somehow cloaked himself and his fighter, rendering them invisible to the enemy. The flagship, its defenses compromised, became a sitting duck. Phoenix Squadron swooped in, their weapons blazing. The flagship shuddered, its hull buckling under the relentless assault. A blinding explosion ripped through the void, engulfing the flagship in a fiery inferno. The Zidonian armada, thrown into disarray, began to retreat. Jace let out a triumphant yell. They had done it. They had bought precious time for the reinforcements to arrive. Chapter 4. The Phoenix Protocol. The alarms blared through the outpost, a relentless siren song of impending doom. Jace could hear the thunder of explosions, the crackle of laser fire, and the panicked shouts of the ground crew as the Zidonians swarmed the base. His heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of desperation and defiance. "They've breached the perimeter!" Sparks yelled, her voice strained. "They're in the main hangar!" Jace slammed his fist against the console. They were out of options, out of time. The Admiral's reinforcements were nowhere in sight. He made a decision, a desperate gamble. "Sparks, patch me through to all squadron members." A moment later, the faces of his pilots filled the comm screen. They were battered and bruised, their eyes reflecting the exhaustion and fear of a losing battle. "Listen up," Jace said, his voice steel-edged. "The base is overrun. We've lost contact with High Command. It's just us now." He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to say. "It's time to activate the Phoenix Protocol." A stunned silence filled the comm channel. The Phoenix Protocol was a last resort, a desperate measure that had never been tested in combat. It involved tapping into the experimental energy core of Ghost's ancient fighter and amplifying it with the combined power of the squadron's engines. It was a risky maneuver with unpredictable consequences, but it was also their only hope. "Are you sure, Commander?" Lucky asked, his voice trembling slightly. "We don't know what this thing can do," Jace nodded grimly. "I know, but we don't have a choice. It's this or we lose everything." He looked at each of his pilots, his gaze unwavering. "This is what we've been training for. This is our moment to rise from the ashes." Without another word, they broke formation and converged on Ghost's fighter. Sparks, with her engineering wizardry, rerouted power from their engines to the ancient core. Lucky, with his tactical mind, calculated the precise trajectory for the energy surge. And Ghost, with his mysterious connection to the ancient technology, channeled the raw power into a focused beam. The hangar bay lit up with a blinding white light as the energy surged through the circuits. The starfighters hummed and shuddered, their engines straining under the immense load. Jace could feel the heat radiating from the core, the raw power building within the ancient vessel. And then, with a blinding flash, the energy beam erupted from Ghost's fighter, a searing spear of light that pierced through the heart of the Zidonian flagship. The enemy vessel shuddered, its shields collapsing like a house of cards. Its engines sputtered and died, and its weapons fell silent. A wave of cheers erupted from Phoenix Squadron. They had done it. They had turned the tide of the battle. But Jace knew their victory was just the beginning. The war was far from over. Chapter 5. A New Dawn. Silence fell upon the battlefield, a stark contrast to the symphony of destruction that had raged moments before. The Zidonian armada, once a menacing swarm, now drifted as lifeless husks, their lights extinguished. The only sound was the gentle hum of the Phoenix Squadron's damaged starfighters. Jace slumped back in his seat, exhaustion washing over him like a tidal wave. His hands trembled as he released the controls, his knuckles white from the strain. He glanced at the status display, his heart sinking as he saw the casualty count. Sparks was gone. Her fighter had taken a direct hit, shielding Lucky from a deadly barrage. Lucky himself was alive, but his ship was barely functional. And Ghost? Jace couldn't even bring himself to check Ghost's status. The pain was too raw, the loss too profound. "Commander!" Lucky's voice crackled over the comm, thick with grief. "We did it! We won!" There was no joy in his voice, only a hollow echo of victory. Jace nodded numbly, unable to share in the sentiment. Victory had come at too high a price. He looked out at the debris field, a silent testament to the sacrifices made. They had lost friends, comrades, family. But they had also saved countless lives, protecting the Terran frontier from annihilation. Just when it seemed like the worst was over, a new threat emerged. A ripple in space-time appeared near the shattered remnants of the wormhole, a shimmering portal that pulsed with an eerie energy. Jace felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. Something was coming through. A massive vessel, unlike anything Jace had ever seen, emerged from the portal. It was a grotesque amalgamation of organic and mechanical components, its hull pulsating with an unsettling bioluminescence. "What the hell is that?" Lucky whispered, his voice filled with awe and dread. Jace had no answer. He had faced Zidonians, pirates, and rogue AIs, but this was something else entirely. Something alien. Something unknown. The alien vessel began to broadcast a signal, a series of complex pulses and frequencies that defied translation. It was a message, but its meaning remained a mystery. "We need to get out of here," Lucky said, his voice urgent. "That thing gives me the creeps." Jace nodded, but a part of him was drawn to the unknown vessel. He couldn't shake the feeling that it held the key to understanding the Zidonian attack, and perhaps even a way to prevent future conflicts. "We can't run," he said, his voice firm. "We need to find out what that thing is and what it wants." He looked at Lucky, his eyes filled with a newfound determination. "We're going in." Lucky hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Commander. But if that thing tries to eat us, I'm blaming you." Jace chuckled, a flicker of his old spirit returning. "Fair enough, Lucky. Fair enough." As Phoenix Squadron approached the alien vessel, a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air. They were venturing into the unknown, facing a threat they couldn't comprehend. But they were also filled with a sense of purpose, a determination to uncover the truth and protect humanity from whatever lay ahead. Chapter 6, Forged in Fire. The Terran frontier, once a scarred wasteland, was now a hive of activity. Construction crews swarmed over the damaged outpost, their tools sparking and whirring as they repaired the battle-worn structures. New starfighters, sleek and deadly, rolled off the assembly lines, their engines thrumming with promise. Jace stood on the observation deck, overlooking the bustling scene below. A warm breeze carried the scent of ozone and burnt metal, a reminder of the recent conflict. But amidst the wreckage, he saw signs of hope. A new generation of pilots was training in the simulators, their eyes filled with the same fire that had driven his own squadron. "It's good to see the frontier coming back to life," a voice said beside him. Jace turned to see Admiral Thorn, his uniform now bearing the dust and grime of the battlefield. The arrogance that Jace had once despised was gone, replaced by a quiet respect. "It wouldn't have been possible without your squadron, Commander," Thorn said. "You and your pilots are heroes." Jace shrugged, a bittersweet smile playing on his lips. "We just did what we had to do, but we lost good people." Thorn nodded solemnly. "Indeed. But their sacrifice will not be forgotten. They will be remembered as the ones who saved the frontier." Jace looked out at the stars, his thoughts drifting to Sparks, to Ghost, to all those who had fallen. He felt a pang of grief, but it was tempered by a sense of pride. They had fought valiantly, and their legacy would live on. "We're not out of the woods yet, Commander," Thorn said, breaking the silence. "The Zidonian threat is still out there. And that unknown vessel, it's a mystery we need to unravel." Jace turned to face the Admiral, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll be ready for whatever comes next, Admiral. Phoenix Squadron will rise to the challenge." Thorn smiled, a genuine smile this time. "I have no doubt, Commander, no doubt at all." He extended his hand, a gesture of respect and camaraderie. Jace took it, a silent understanding passing between them. They were no longer adversaries, but allies, united by a common purpose. As Jace watched the sun set over the Terran frontier, casting long shadows across the rebuilt base, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The ghosts of the past still lingered, but they were fainter now, their voices drowned out by the hum of progress and the promise of a new dawn. He had found his purpose again, not in revenge or despair, but in protecting those he cared about, in ensuring that the sacrifices of his fallen comrades were not in vain. The Terran frontier was his home, and he would defend it with his life. And he knew that as long as the spirit of Phoenix Squadron lived on, humanity would never be truly defeated. They would rise from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever before. Forged in fire, they would face the unknown with courage and hope, ready to embrace whatever the future held.